I've been racing for 2 decades, and you kind of roll into a venue, you do your race and you get out. And Ironman Foundation has been really about going into these communities and helping out where necessary. So Sonoma, they had a big fire, and Ironman Foundation came in and helped build some housing. I just think after all these years, it's nice to be able to give back a little bit.
Joining us in the studio today is Australian professional triathlete and Ironman triathlon world champion. She's achieved podium positions in 7 of her 10 attempts at the Ironman World Championships. She's also won the 2007 Ironman 70.3 World Championships. Please welcome Mirinda Carfrae. Mirinda, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here.
It's great to see you. And I hear you're in St. George, Utah, getting ready for Ironman World Championships there, right?
Yeah, the Ironman 70.3 World Championships are tomorrow, Friday and Saturday. And yeah, I'll be doing a little bit of commentary, and I'm here just for Ironman, being one of their athlete ambassadors for the week. So lots of shaking hands and kissing babies.
Super fun. And will you do some commentating as well?
Exactly. Yeah, I'm planning to do a little on-course commentary for the women's race tomorrow, and then also some commentary for the men's race as well.
Great. Well, welcome to the show, and thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to our listeners. Mirinda, not everybody knows you, and I know you go by Rinny, so I'll just refer to you as Rinny from now on.
Yes,
if that's
please.
Cool.
Yeah, that's great.
Rinny, tell us about your childhood. Where were you born, and what kind of things did you do as a kid?
So I was born in Brisbane, Australia. I now live in Boulder, Colorado with my husband and 2 babies. I grew up actually playing basketball, believe it or not. I only grew to 5'3", and but I loved basketball. I followed my brothers in. I'm one of 6 kids. I have 3 brothers and 2 sisters. Grew up in a small crop farm. I think we like to say they had low kids because they needed free labor. But yeah, I just followed my very active childhood, outdoors all the time, and loved sports. I remember wishing in high school that you could just play sports as a living and didn't have to do schoolwork. And here I am, 20 plus years later, and I basically
Amazing.
figured out a way to play sport my whole life. I actually didn't find out about triathlon until I finished high school and was starting university, and met a couple of triathletes in the gym. I was actually in the gym, sort of, getting fit for the upcoming basketball season, and started working out with some triathletes, and was just intrigued with this crazy 3-sport, 1-sport thing.
Yeah.
And took me some time, but I think probably a year into sort of training with them. And I say training with them, we were just doing gym work, and they wrote me into a couple of run sessions. So I was doing 3 gym sessions a week with them and 2 run sessions. And then eventually their coach just said, hey, have you ever thought of doing a triathlon? You make a really nice runner, and I think you'd make a really good triathlete. And that was sort of all I needed. That was what I was thinking in my mind. I'd love to give this sport a go, but I was just not very confident in myself, and just needed someone else on the outside to be like, hey, you should give this a try. And and I actually had no reason to think I'd be any good at it, other than, I knew I could kind of keep up in the run sessions, but, I didn't swim at all and didn't even own a bike. So, that was a big learning curve, learning everything. And it was the right call.
I can imagine. Yeah, no, look at you now, right? For sure it was the right call then, but were you tempted, as an early or in your earlier years, were you tempted in any other directions, any other sports or careers, or did this sort of all fall into place and this was it?
Yeah, so I was beginning university, and I was studying a dual degree, business and basically sports science. And triathlon sort of quickly became my main focus, in that I guess 2099, I did my first ever triathlon in the summer, so around this time of the year. By 2001, I was in the Australian junior team. And so with that, we would travel internationally for a lot of the year. First trips overseas, I got on as I said, my first Australian team and traveled. And then 2002, 3, 4, we spent like 4 or 5 months on the road. And so that sort of derailed a lot of my study. Um, and yeah, it quickly became my major focus. And there was definitely a lot of, am I doing the right thing? Should I be deferring my university studies? Certainly had people questioning what I was doing with my life.
Sure.
And,
Sure.
but I had a you know, really supportive parents. And my mum was like, look, if this is what feels good, if this is what you're loving right now, then you should continue, on this path. And, I think some of my siblings were like, really, you want to work this hard and you want to do this? I'm like, it just felt right. And I think sometimes, and along that path, it just seemed like doors kept opening for me, and it
Right.
seemed easy. I don't want to say it was easy, but I just kept progressing as an athlete, and the results kept improving. And I kept sort of saying, okay, if I'm not at this point by this date, then maybe I should, pack it in and go back and finish my degree. And I kept meeting those marks.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm glad that I stuck with it.
That's awesome. What careers or what did your parents do when you were growing up? Were they working on the farm or did they have other careers? What did they do?
Yeah, my mum was actually a teacher before she had children, and then she sort of retired from teaching, and they both worked the farm. But then she went back and became I can't think of the name of it, but basically teaching people with their second language is English. So it's teaching them like not how to speak English, but just sort of helping them along their way.
Yeah. How did you dodge the bullet and not, work on the farm or did you actually have to work on the farm as an early kid?
Yeah, absolutely. We all pitched in. That was sort of just part of it, helping out on the farm. And I think when the farm was really at its, max, I was a little younger. So sort of later in my, um, you know, teenage years or, adult life, the farm really was kind of falling away. And it was more that, mum was working as a
Yeah.
teacher, and the farm, they weren't making enough money off the farm. So, but when I was younger, yeah, my job was to fold the cartons, and also sometimes as I got older, your job was then to like cut, pick the lettuce and pack them. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
you kind of like move through, and then carrying the boxes when you're big enough and strong enough to do that.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
so you kind of move through the rankings, so to speak.
So the farm was mostly growing vegetables
Yep.
or were there livestock? Do you have, any animals on the farm too?
I mean, we did, but we didn't have, just for for fun. We had a couple of
Yeah.
sheep, and we had at one point we had a cow for a while. We had some pigs for a while, geese, chickens, obviously a dog or two.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so we always had, farm animals, but not for any reason other than to, feed ourselves.
Yeah. If you were to hang up your cycling or your triathlon hat for a while and do something else, what would you do?
I would probably just be a mum. I have a 5-year-old and a almost 2-year-old, and yeah, that is the most appealing job. And it's not a job, but it's the most appealing use of my time now.
Yeah.
Just being present for them, having the energy for them.
That's pretty special for sure. I have two kids as well, and I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, they grow up quick.
You come from a pretty big family, right? 6 kids. Are any of your siblings competitive athletes?
No, none of them are competitive athletes. One of my brothers did do an Ironman Cairns a few years ago. He and did a couple of other triathlons.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, everyone, as I said, sort of played basketball, the natural progression through, high school, university, and then went off and got their jobs and got married, and sort of, um, the athletic careers kind of went to the wayside. But
Yeah.
yeah, as I said, one of my brothers, he's a fireman. He took up triathlon like probably a decade after I'd been racing, and said, "Okay, well, I want to do one of these races." And so eventually got him to do Ironman Cairns in 2018 when I did it as well. So that was pretty
Oh,
cool.
nice.
Yeah,
Nice. He did as an age group, or you were in the pro group,
exactly. Yeah.
right? That's awesome.
Hmm.
And was it a full distance?
Yeah, the full Ironman.
That's awesome.
I remember him crossing the finish line and saying, "This is stupid." I'm like, yeah, it's pretty dumb.
It is pretty crazy for sure.
Yeah,
Is your family close geographically? Are they spread out around the world, or are they mostly on Australia? Where are they now?
mostly in Australia. I have one brother that's living in Bali right now. He spent a lot of his adult life living in the US as well, but he's moved on to Bali through the pandemic, and I think his plan was to move back to Australia, but with their quarantine rules, he was sort of waiting, and then he sort of, you know, built a life in Bali, and now he lives there. But yeah, all of
Nice.
my other siblings and live in Australia, and yeah, I'm actually heading back in a couple of weeks, so I'm really excited. It's been almost 3 years, so I'm very excited to go and see everybody.
The pandemic has definitely shifted people's travel around, right?
Totally, yeah, we would go every year for 2 months, and last time we came back in I think January of 2020, so everything changed after that.
Crazy.
Yeah.
All right, Rainey, we're going to shift to the sprint section of our podcast where I throw a bunch of this or that at you, and you just tell us which things you prefer over the others. So here we go. Pancakes or waffles?
Waffles.
Beer or wine?
Wine.
Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Tacos or burritos?
Burritos.
Spicy or mild?
Spicy.
Cold weather or hot weather?
Hot weather.
Rain or snow?
Snow.
The mountains or the beach?
Beach.
Big cities or quiet suburbs?
Quiet suburbs.
Cars or trucks?
Trucks.
Pavement or dirt?
Dirt.
Dirt. Wow.
Yeah.
Gloves or gloveless?
Gloves.
Clipped in or flat pedals?
Clipped in.
Oh, yeah. Low pressure in your tires or high pressure?
Well, it depends, but I like the high pressure.
How about this? Last one. No, second to last. Fix it yourself or take it to a mechanic?
Take it to a mechanic. I mean, if I had the time, I would fix it myself, but no.
And the last one, this is a new one I just added. Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Awesome.
Sprint
Dogs or
section
cats?
was good.
I need to remember that. I need to remember to add formally dogs or cats to my list.
Yeah.
This next section is the climb. So I want to learn more about your competitive career. Tell me about that moment when you went from amateur to pro. What does that look like? How did that happen?
Yeah, for me, there really wasn't much. It was like I did one amateur race and then I was thrown into the junior ranks. And so I was professional, like technically professional, because in triathlon there wasn't really a junior. I mean, there was junior ITU, but you're basically racing in the professional ranks at that point. So you have a professional license. And so, yeah, I basically was, I guess I could talk about moving from junior to senior. And my first world championships was under 19 junior world champs in
Yeah.
2001. And then fortunately for me, the next year they created another category, under 23 world champs. So there was under 19, under 23, and then professional. And so while I was racing on the World Cup circuit as a professional in the open category, for the World Championships, they had the under 23 category. So I got to race that a couple of years before I was completely in the open category. So yeah, it was a very smooth transition actually, because I really knew nothing other than the professional ranks. I'd never, raced an age group triathlon
Yeah.
in the masses. It was always sort of with the professionals. So yeah.
Who amongst the pros were some of the people that you followed or admired, or were there heroes of the sport that you looked up to?
Yeah, at that time it was right around the first triathlon event in the Olympic Games, and there was obviously Australians were I think at the 2000, sorry, the 99 World Championships, the Australian women came in one, two, three, four, five in the world.
Wow.
So I didn't have to look far to see a hero or someone to aspire to be. And my hero in the sport was Loretta Harrop, and she actually won in 99. Um, got injured before the Sydney Olympics, ended up fifth in the Sydney Olympics, but still, I kind of got an up close look at how she went about preparing for races because she trained out of Brisbane in the same centre. And so I sort of got a little bit of insight into her toughness and her mental strength. And that really opened my eyes to, what it really takes to be the best in the world. And yeah, I mean, I think meeting other professionals, she definitely was at the very top of athletes that are, when you talk about toughness,
Yeah.
that's her. But yeah, I mean, McKeely Jones obviously was I think the most winning triathlete of all time, and Australian as well. And she also made a career in the US, so definitely sort of followed her footsteps over to the US.
Yeah.
And then there's people like Greg Welsh. He won Kona in '94, I believe it was, and the first Australian to win. Just great, great, inspiring role model. So he raced all distances, the sprint up to the Ironman, and was able to get to the pinnacle of the sport. So
Right.
definitely, my heroes definitely skewed Australian in the early days.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Rennie, was there ever a moment where you thought, oh, I've had enough. This is it. I'm done. I'm going to quit and I'm doing something different.
Yeah, I think you have those moments, almost, well, probably not yearly, but fairly regularly, and especially after I achieved, you know, the highest. Um, I won Kona 3 times, and so after I'd won it, the first time was sort of like, whoa, holy wow, I won my second Ironman ever, and then um, I just was on that journey and I loved it. But then sort of won in 2013, and then you're like coming back as defending champ, and there's just all of a sudden you have, I mean, so many more obligations. It's not just, when you come into the sport and you're unknown, it's very simple. It's easy. You swim, bike, run, you
Right.
recover, and you don't make a lot of money, but it's simple. Like there's no other distractions. And as you move through the ranks, hopefully you get to the top. And I was able to get to the top, which is, obviously, you know, my goal and the greatest gift. But with that comes responsibility, and with that comes a lot of extra work. And that was the part that really gets old. Like, okay, you got to fly here, you got to do a photo shoot. It's taking away from your training, and you're not, resting as well. So it just, all of the business side of it made it just more of a job than a passion. And
Right.
it still always was a passion. I still, when it comes down to it, love competition and love getting the best out of myself and nailing that hard session. Like I loved that, but yeah, the business side of it makes it a little more complicated, and sometimes takes away a little bit of the shine from
Yeah.
actually, being a professional athlete.
I'm curious, triathlon, of course, swim, bike, run. Which of the three disciplines is your strength and which one is your weakest?
The strength is my run, and the swim is my weakness.
Of the, most people in the world think a triathlon is really just three sports. But in fact, there's more things that you have to master. You just mentioned a little while ago recovery,
Mm-hmm.
but there's also nutrition, hydration, maintaining, being injury free.
Mm-hmm.
There's the training. It's really like more than three things that you have to master. Outside of swim, bike, run, what are some of the more difficult or challenging areas that you have to focus on and sort of master?
Yeah, I think certainly as the event gets longer, nutrition plays more and more a part. But also, I think the mental game you bring into a race, and that mental um, side of racing is super important. If you don't have, what it takes, you know, between the ears, then you can forget about it on race day. So a lot of visualization and mental preparation going into races. Um, Also, recovery is super important. And as I've gotten older, it becomes more important. But now I have children, so I have no time for recovery.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I mean, it's just kind of a bit of a balancing act. Also, my husband is a professional triathlete, so it's a good thing, but also not a good thing because both of us are trying to, do our best to recover, and so nobody wants to clean the house or cook dinner or get the groceries. But
Totally.
yeah, so yeah, it's kind of a constant balancing act to try and get all the work done, recover as much as possible. Um, and I think over the years as well, you kind of, well, I certainly found that I was able to sort of dial in what my nutritional needs were, and not just in racing. Obviously, that's very important, but um, getting the right fuel, the timing of when you're eating post sessions, is as we learn more, kind of figuring out exactly, what you need to eat and how soon after a session you need to get those calories in to recover well. This plays a huge part in it as well. So, yeah, I mean, it's basically 24/7.
Right.
Like if you're doing it right, you're basically optimizing every moment of your life around performance. And, uh, you know, I think we did a great job of that prior to having children. And I think I do a pretty terrible job post having children, but I think also
Right.
my priorities have shifted,
Right.
and that's a natural progression. You know, of an athlete that's been in the sport for 20 years and now has other priorities.
Yeah. Rennie, tell me more about, I want to explore more about mental toughness because it is a big one. And especially when you're in that marathon portion of a triathlon, it's been hours and hours that you've been moving your body. You really got to dig deep sometimes. And that mental toughness, that clarity, that compartmentalization is important. Do you work with a coach or someone to help, sharpen that ability, or is that just come from inside you? Is that something you've learned?
I think it's both. Um, I think it does come from within, but I also throughout my career work with my coach is Siri Lindley, and she has now started work like being one of Tony Robbins' key speakers. So
Oh
while
yeah.
I hired her to be my triathlon physical coach. Every single day she was working, without me really even realizing it on my mind. And we never talked about it, but you know, through like talking about races and the way she would approach, um, just the way she deals with her athletes, I think that is kind of sharpening the sword, you
Right.
know. And so to have someone in your corner that you're almost daily, I mean, I was most of my career, we were living in the same spot, in that, we were in Boulder or we were in, Australia training camp, or there was a time when she was living in California and I'd go out to training camp there. So a lot of the time she had eyes on me, at least for swim sessions and a lot of the time for the main run sessions. So yeah, having her constantly there and just talking me, I think it's just the way she coaches. And
Right.
you don't realize it until after that actually I think because I never worked with a sports psychologist until recently actually, and I never thought there was any need for one, but I think because I had Siri in my corner, she was sort of my sports psychologist every day.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. Changing gears. I'm curious about close calls on the bike. Cycling can be dangerous at times. Triathlon can be dangerous at times, especially in super windy conditions with a solid rear disc. Uh, have you had any close calls or?
I've had so many different close calls, but none that are really stand out like one incident, I mean, the winds sometimes coming down the canyon in Boulder from Estes Park are like, or coming down from Harvey in Hawaii, like, yeah, that that can be scary, and I've definitely been scared a lot of times on the bike. Not to mention like motorists like turning in front of you, like
Right.
But I've fortunately never had anything go wrong. I've been like scared many times, but never, like you're going downhill at like, I don't know, 50 miles an hour and wheel goes flat. Like I've had that happen before, but was able to hold it. um, I've had like cars cut in front of me. I've had like cars just, they like to buzz you sometimes as well. I think that's a cool thing to do. Yeah, and I've crashed my bike for sure, plenty of times. But usually the crashes have been like going around a corner too fast in the rain
Yeah.
and sliding out, things like that.
Yeah. Have you ever missed the start of a race?
Never. And it's actually my worst nightmare. I've had so many. Anytime it comes close to a big race, I have that nightmare. You can guarantee it in the, maybe it could be a month before the race, it could be a week before the race, but I have that, that nightmare where you're going down to the race start and you realize you set your alarm, like, or your alarm didn't go off and you haven't sorted out your nutrition or you haven't you pumped up your tires and the gun's going off in 2 minutes. Like, so many times I've had that nightmare.
How about contingency plans? Have you ever rolled up to the start of a race and found out that suddenly the swim was canceled or
Yep.
something happened to the event and it modified it so majorly that it was suddenly a different type of event?
I've definitely rolled up to events and had the swim be cancelled, and I've rolled up to events and I've had to shorten the bike and the run. I remember I raced in Muncie one year, and it was like I think the lake temperature, the water was like 90 degrees or 95, and then in this reservoir, and then they had to shorten it because the air temperature was like 100 degrees or something. And I've had swims be cancelled for different reasons. Fog usually, too much fog, and so they can't get the safety craft out on the
Right. Right.
water. And they did. Then they moved to a time trial start. And actually, things like that generally get me more excited and more in the zone, and I race better when there's like something thrown at me at the last minute. So
Huh.
yeah, I mean, it never feels good to have things reset, but I've found over the years, or if I look back now, I feel like I've dealt really well with those adversities.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that's good. It's good to be able to recover from those because that's the true testament, right, of a
Mm-hmm.
of a pro.
Yep.
Rini, tell me about the Tim and Rini show. What's that all about, and are you still doing it?
Yeah. So my husband Tim and I, after we had our daughter Isabel, we realized the whole social media world was becoming more and more important for athletes, and it wasn't enough to just go and win a race anymore. And don't get me wrong, I have amazing partners that have supported me for a long time, but we were sort of thinking about how we can better serve our partners. And it was actually my husband's idea that we start a YouTube show, and I think we were one of the first in triathlon to start a show. And yeah, it was 2018. We
Yeah.
did our first season of the Tim and Rini show, and basically it just gives an insight because we get so many questions about what does it look like for both of you racing, and now you have a child, how does that all work, and so trying to give people helpful information for them that they can maybe take home or learn something from, and also just people just interested. Some people are interested in how we go about being professional triathletes. Like, what does that look like? And so, yeah, we still do have the Tim and Rini show going. We don't put out as many episodes now, just because with two kids, it's a little more
Two
crazy. But
kids.
we
Yeah.
but we do update whenever anything we think is newsworthy comes up. And so, yeah, so big races or big life moments. We've shared that on our YouTube show, and actually for us, it's been really fun. Like, I really enjoy it. They're almost like family videos now, and I think my daughter and son will enjoy looking back on them in the future when they can sort of see what we were up to, and yeah, they're throughout all of them as well. So it's pretty fun.
At some point, your kids are going to be at a certain age where they're going to start showing some athletic, abilities, right? It's in their blood, right? So I'm curious, what kind of advice might you give either a young child that's interested in triathlon or your own kids? What will you tell them as they start to develop into little humans that have some natural ability?
I think the biggest thing for us is to expose them to all different sports. We certainly, you know, don't mind if they play any sport. Like if they fall in love with whatever, dancing, that's great as long as they do it with passion. And yeah, I mean, we're certainly not pushing them into triathlon, but both, my son is only 2 and he wants to ride his little strider bike, and Isabel loves swimming and she tells us she's going to be a professional athlete someday. But yeah, sort of the monkey see, monkey do situation. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, right now she's playing soccer. She's doing dance and gymnastics, and so yeah, we just want to, them to be exposed to a bunch of. I think team sports, having a team sport's important. I loved my, years playing basketball. At some of the best times of my life were, in a team. So I think it's important to do that, and then yeah, see what way they end up, what sport they gravitate towards in the
Yeah.
end.
Yeah. Yeah. How about an amateur triathlete? So, um, if you ran across an amateur triathlete at a restaurant and they had just done a couple and they were looking for some advice from a seasoned pro like yourself, is there one big thing that they should focus on, or what kind of advice might you give a young amateur?
I think well, I think one of the most important things is to have a good coach, or like someone that you can work with that really cares about you, and is not just looking for a paycheck. I think that's the best way to improve, is to have build a good team around you. And training partners are fantastic as well. If you can't afford a coach, then having a really good training partner is invaluable.
What about, I often hear it's all about the run. Is it really all about the run?
I don't think so. um, yeah, I mean, the run is my strength, and so for me, it's all about the run. But you have to be able to cycle very well, and you have
Right.
to be able to swim well enough. The famous saying is you can lose the race in the swim, but you can't win it, right? So you could be the
Right.
fastest swimmer and still not win. Um, but you can certainly lose the race if you're that far off the back. And so you
Right.
have to be very strong across all three. Having a very strong closing leg is very helpful.
Right. Right. Cool. Closing out in this cool down section, Rennie, let's talk about some of the great organizations you're involved in. I know one of them is World Bicycle Relief and the other is the Ironman Foundation. Tell us about your involvement in World Bicycle Relief and what's that all about?
Yeah, so I've been working with World Bicycle Relief for over a decade, and basically through SRAM, and they've do a fantastic job of putting bikes on the ground in rural Africa that enable. And what drew me to it was they would enable young women, because a lot of the time in Africa, the young women are basically tasked with bringing water and cooking food, and looking after the
Right.
family. And so when it's a 2-mile walk each way to fetch the water twice a day, just leaves little time to get any schooling done, and therefore opportunities are limited. And so with giving them a bicycle, it enables them to get the water and go to school. It cuts their um, commuting time down and immensely. And so, there's a number of different branches, but that's really the one that I was most passionate about, or am most passionate about, just enabling young women to have more opportunity. And my other foundation that I've been working with in the last few years is Ironman Foundation. And, as I said, I've been racing for 2 decades, and, you kind of roll into a venue, you do your race and you get out. And Ironman Foundation
Right.
has been really about um, going into these communities and helping out where necessary. So, for example, I know in like Sonoma, they had a big fire, and Ironman Foundation came in and helped build some housing
Mm.
and just clean up projects in different areas. yeah, I think in Puerto Rico they had a really good program after one of the hurricanes. And so, yeah, that's another one that I just think after all these years, it's nice to be able to give back a little bit
Yeah.
in the communities that we're actually racing in. So having like an impact and giving back that way.
Yeah. That's really special. Um, World Bicycle Relief has done some amazing things all around the world, but the work they do, and you picked up on it in and around education and giving bikes to children, especially women that would walk to school, is just incredible and so powerful.
Hmm. Yeah, it's amazing what two wheels can give to a person.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Rennie, this has been awesome. We are just about out of time now for the show. I want to thank you so much for joining us today, and I wish you great luck in St. George.
Thank you.
Do you have any picks for the men's and women's field that you could share?
Well, I know this is going to come out after, so you guys will know by the time you listen.
Yeah.
My pick is Taylor Nibb, Lucy
Okay.
Charles, Paula
Lucy.
Finlay,
Okay.
Paula Finlay, the third. And on the men's side, I think we might see Magnus Ditlev up there, but I think probably one of the Norwegians. I think Christian Blumenfeld will win. I think Magnus second, Sam Long third.
Ooh, you like Sam for third. Good. I'd like to see him up there for
Yeah, I
sure.
think. He could take it all. He's an exciting young talent.
Fun. All right. Well, Rennie, thanks again, and good luck out there. Stay cool, and we'll see you soon on the road.
Thank you so much, David.
All right. Bye.